But today we face an altogether different threat. The power of big tech is something that William Randolph Hearst, at the height of yellow journalism, could not have imagined. The ability for a handful of giant tech companies to decide if a particular speaker is disfavored, that he or she may speak and their words simply fade into the ether, that no one hears what they say and nobody knows that no one hears what they say. Not only does big tech have the power to silence voices with which they disagree, but big tech likewise has the power to collate a person's feed so that they only receive the news that comports with their own political agenda.
I would like to discuss another recent issue, the account @Unplanned. This account was caught in our automated systems used to detect ban evasion. Ban evasion technology is an important tool to reduce the number of repeat offenders on our platform. Specifically, the person who created the movie's account was previously suspended for breaking our rules. We reinstated @Unplanned as soon as it was brought to our attention that the account was not being used for similar violative activity. And the hashtag #UnplannedMovie became a trending topic on Twitter.
The powerful and true story that it relays. Mr. Konzelman has a long and successful career in the secular entertainment industry. He's worked with Warner Brothers, Paramount, Sony Columbia, and 20th Century Fox, and sold original concept TV pilots to CBS, ABC, and Fox. In 2008, he and his friend Cary Solomon decided to embark on a new path. Moved by their faith, they left the secular entertainment field and began working on films promoting a Christian message, including God's Not Dead, another wonderful film, and Do You Believe? Mr. Konzelman is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame. Mr. Konzelman, you may begin.
Senator Cruz, members of the committee, I appear here today with my lifelong friend and business partner, Cary Solomon, who is my co-writer, co-director, co-producer of the film Unplanned, which is the true life story of Abby Johnson, a former Planned Parenthood surgical abortion clinic director, who, after seeing an abortion take place in real time on a sonogram screen, the image created via the ultrasound probe that Abby herself was holding, turned her entire worldview upside down and became a pro-life advocate. That film is playing in theaters nationwide as we speak. From the outset, making a pro-life film in a pro-choice town, Los Angeles, we knew we would face a number of challenges. Moving past the challenges of production and post-production and limiting my comments to the marketing campaign, please allow me to highlight some of those. The MPAA saddled us with an R rating, which strongly discourages much of the Christian audience and all of the Church of Latter-day Saints from seeing our film, since they have a general prohibition against seeing R-rated films. It also precluded us from using the single most effective form of motion picture advertising, paid placement of our theatrical trailer before other films in theaters. But with an R rating, we were prohibited from advertising before anything other than other R-rated films without special permission, which we sought and were denied. We also looked to advertise on cable television, but with the exception of Fox News and CBN, we were systematically denied access to the outlets where we sought to advertise, among which were Lifetime, Up TV, Hallmark, HGTV, USA Network, Food Network, The Travel Channel, DIY, and The Cooking Channel. Lifetime, which is owned by A&E Networks, a joint venture of Walt Disney and Hearst Communications, told our buyers that they were refusing due to the, quote, sensitive nature of the film, unquote, but had previously promoted an interview with Scarlett Johansson in which she touted the benefits of Planned Parenthood. We consider these blanket refusals highly unusual and highly discriminatory and are formally petitioning the FCC to look further into the matter. In this environment, we rather naturally looked to go to social media with our advertising spend. But once again, we found ourselves stymied. Google Ads, formerly known as Google AdWords, blocked the entirety of the unplanned pre-release banner ads, which I should probably point out consisted of a woman, half of her face with a tear coming down, and the words saying what she saw changed everything. I don't think they were particularly offensive. For the effectiveness of Google advertising, we will quote Google itself. When you advertise on the Google Display Network, which has over 2 million sites and reaches over 90% of the people on the internet, your ads can appear across a large collection of websites, mobile apps, and video content. There the quote ends. We were convinced of the advisability of advertising with Google, but we were blocked from doing so. Google cited a policy regarding abortion-related ads. Just one problem, we weren't doing abortion-related ads, we were marketing a movie. It's important to note that this prohibition was solidly in place for the entire lead up to our theatrical release. Why is this important? Because much like advertising spent in a political campaign, the vast majority of dollars spent in promoting a film are spent to help build up a white-hot intensity and awareness around one particular date. But instead of election night, for films it's Friday night of opening weekend. Because that all-important opening weekend's results determine the course of the film's theatrical run and even how much it will make in ancillary markets and overseas. And after the film's release, Google came up with yet another restriction concerning event ticket sales, one which our film's marketers had never come across or even heard of in multiple similar campaigns. In short, we firmly believe that they were sharpshooting us, hiding behind highly selective and discriminatory enforcement of their own guidelines. It's impossible for me to quantify the damage done by Google's refusal, but it's absurd to think that there wasn't damage done. But we weren't finished with social media woes. Within hours of our theatrical debut, in the early morning hours of Saturday, March 30th, the film's Twitter account, technically the account owned by the film's single-purpose marketing entity, was suspended. The reason for that suspension has not, to the best of my knowledge, been made clear beyond being accidental or a mistake. However, when such accidents occur within 12 hours of the film's theatrical debut, and after what I understand was 9 months of ownership, during which time there were 0 suspensions, the glitch becomes suspect. The uproar came quickly and was loud. Apparently, a number of media personalities, including Shannon Bream of Fox News, conservative commentator Dana Lash, and television personality and pro-life supporter Patricia Heaton were aware of the situation and made it known from their own social media platforms. If any progressive or left-leaning pundits or influencers came to our support on the basis of principle, we are unaware of it. Within 2 hours after the suspension, service was restored, although it's also my understanding that our posting of a Twitter announcement with words to the effect of "We're back" was deleted from the account without explanation. Later on the same day, Twitter apparently deleted the vast majority of those listed as followers on our account, reducing the number from something on the order of 200,000 to less than 200, a 1,000-to-1 reduction in our listed followers. And numerous people, including the subject of our film, Abby Johnson, and the star of our film, Ashley Bratcher, found themselves unable to read or follow their own movie on Twitter. Dana Lash's tweet of 11:21 p.m. on the same day read, and here I quote, "About 5 minutes ago, I was following at Unplanned Movie, and then I just checked after seeing so many say they had trouble even following the account, and somehow I wasn't following them anymore." The quote ends here. Again, this was during our all-important first weekend of release. Begging the question, why does this always seem to happen to conservatives? Or as the overtly satirical website The Babylon Bee put it, quote, "Meanwhile, Planned Parenthood, an organization that actually kills babies every single day, still had an active Twitter account in good standing," unquote. Interestingly, on the one social media platform from today's panel where we didn't have any significant problems, on Facebook, our exposure exploded. And I believe the film's Facebook site had something on the order of about 12 million trailer views by the time of our theatrical debut, and nearly 18 million to date. We credit this unrestricted access with much of the film's success only highlighting the importance of access to social media. For the record, we allege no collusion between any of the social media or cable entities, at least not in the formal sense. They require no coordinated communication or agreement between them because they are unanimously progressive in their orientation, political beliefs, and worldview, and likewise strongly predisposed towards stifling conservative thought. But as evidence that this discrimination is one-sided, I posit this question to the committee. There are a number of pro-choice films currently in development in Hollywood. I will mention 2. Let Her Speak, the story of Wendy Davis's pro-choice filibuster on the floor of the Texas Senate, to which Sandra Bullock is attached to star. And This Is Jane, being produced by Amazon Prime, which tells the story of an underground abortion provider network in pre-Roe versus Wade Chicago. Is there any member of this committee who would like to go on record as saying they honestly expect that either of those films will have trouble in buying advertising on Google or otherwise? I think not, because they won't. unless perhaps this committee elects to remember and closely examine whether standards are applied evenly, and lest anyone be tempted to dismiss our film as some sort of right-wing rant or conservative propaganda, I will quote from the final lines of an article by Mark Thiessen of the Washington Post and reprinted in the New York Post, neither of which are generally regarded as bastions of conservative thought. Here I quote, "Ultimately, the movie is a testament to the power of prayer. Abby's family prays for her to leave Planned Parenthood, but they never reject her. They know she's a good person who does not yet understand the evil of abortion. There are millions like her. The film's goal is to reach them by showing us the humanity of the unborn child. This is why abortion supporters don't want you to see Unplanned. See it anyway." The quote ends here. That is a Washington Post journalist description of the movie that social media went out of its way to restrict public awareness of. In closing, if social media is allowed to presumptively and preemptively dismiss conservative thought as controversial, divisive, or too sensitive, then that is what it will continue to do. If they're allowed to apply their own broadly drawn guidelines to dismiss one side of controversial issues, the side they don't agree with, and do so with impunity, then they will do so. It's all too easy to label conservative thought as controversial or divisive, dismiss it as contrary to their guidelines, or roll out the dreaded phrase, hate speech. But in a digital age, exclusion from the digital arena isn't just discriminatory. It's the most insidiously effective form of censorship available or imaginable. Senator Cruz and the Judiciary Committee members, thank you for your attention. It's been an honor for Cary Solomon and myself to be here, and we hope to be able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Konzelman. Mr. Konzelman, let's start with you. What we have heard asserted in this meeting that there is no pattern of discrimination and censorship against conservative views or against pro-life views. That assertion seems manifestly contrary to all the available evidence, although I would note that the social media companies keep much of the evidence in a black box where we're forced to argue by example rather than what would be preferable, arguing based on the actual data. But let's focus on your example, because that is one specific and immediate example. The movie Unplanned tells the true story of Abby Johnson. Abby Johnson was the clinic director of the Waco Planned Parenthood Clinic. She was not just briefly a Planned Parenthood employee. She spent, as I understand it, 7 years working for Planned Parenthood. She was named Employee of the Year by Planned Parenthood. But then, horrified by the practices she saw at Planned Parenthood, by what she saw happen, she left the abortion industry and has become an outspoken pro-life advocate. I will say, when I attended a screening and watched the movie, it was one of the most powerful and moving movies I have ever seen. I thought I was prepared to see the movie, and I was not. As I understand it, virtually every TV network refused to carry trailers for the movie. Google repeatedly blocked you from advertising the movie. Twitter took your page down, an undisputed fact for which Twitter apologized here today. And not only that, but both Abby Johnson and Ashley Brasher, the actress who plays Abby Johnson in the movie, were prevented from following the Twitter page for the movie. Is all of that correct? Am I understanding the facts correctly?
Yes, with the most minor corrections. She was actually the clinic director of Bryan, Texas.
Okay.
It was 8 years for her whole stint there, from volunteer to clinic director, and I think that's about the only amendments I would make to what you just said.
And what were the consequences, in particular, of Google preventing you from advertising? As you noted, Google itself touts that its advertisements are very effective. What consequences did you face from that censorship?
Well, given that there's blanket and kind of systematic censorship, social media was where we turned to. We assumed that we would be allowed to engage in a commercial transaction. Having the money to buy advertising, we assumed we'd be able to buy advertising. And even though certain news organizations have treated us with tremendous journalistic respect, there's a psychological mechanism in the mind of a movie ticket buyer. Until they see some paid advertising, they don't really associate that it is a real movie and that it's coming out at a particular date. And you need to try to create somewhere between, estimates go between 8 and 12 impressions. So we were not able to create those impressions very easily for that market.
And as I understand it, despite this almost total social media blackout, although you did give credit to Facebook for not engaging in this practice, and despite this almost total media blackout, the film nonetheless in its opening weekend became the #5 selling movie in the country, despite concerted efforts to prevent moviegoers from hearing about it.
It was actually #4, and when the numbers got finalized, we thought it was 5. It actually jumped to #4 when the numbers were finalized. And just so I can give a relative measure of what I believe the importance of the film is, before it aired, Michael Ferris, who's the president of the Alliance Defending Freedom, had said, "I believe this is the cultural event that can overturn Roe." Now, that would thrill some and scare others. But I will say that after about 10 days in release, or a couple more now, we have had approaches through Abby Johnson's organization, and then there were none. Which transitions workers out of the abortion industry. I believe we have something approaching 1% of the abortion workers in the United States seeking help to leave the industry. Now, that's based partly on a hard number and partly on an estimate. The number of actual workers who have reached out is 94. I believe there's something on the order of about 700 clinics nationwide. If they all had 12 employees. I wasn't a math major, but I think we still get to about a little better than 1%. So I think on the order of 1% of the abortion workers in the United States, after getting one look at them being portrayed on film, and it serves, I think, also some evidence that they're not being portrayed as monsters, have decided to change their lives and their profession and what they do for a living.
That is truly extraordinary, and let me commend you. One of the things that I liked best about the film is that it was not a cartoonish portrayal, that it was compassionate. It was compassionate to workers like Abby who were working for Planned Parenthood, although it displayed the practices of Planned Parenthood that pressure women into having abortions, and sometimes against what they would otherwise wish for.
That was our attempt. Abby was very firm that she wanted this film to be a love letter to those who are still trapped in the industry.
As with the previous panel, the record in this hearing will be kept open for 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. Senators are asked to submit any written questions to any of the witnesses by that date, and then each of the witnesses are asked to respond to those questions as promptly as possible. I thank you again for the time and energy and expertise that you have shed on this important issue. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.